right, you are good to go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another special meeting of the Board of Finance. It is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight in attendance, we have myself, Eileen Cook, Vice Chair that's doing some of the running of the meeting. Glenn is on the phone with us tonight, Brianna and Mary, and Ryan is soon to arrive, and Ian is absent tonight. So there's no public here for public comment, so I think we can move into the first order of business, which is budget discussions.
Yes, okay. The public is doing public.
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Go, Glenn.
Thank you, everybody, so much for helping out here and supporting. So I appreciate all the work last night. So last night at the end of the meeting, it was decided that there would be run through these numbers, double check them, and have it run through the 10-year model to see where we stood. That exercise raised some issues that were flagged by our Director of Finance. So Marcia, are you on? Can you walk us through your concerns?
Yes, we have been using this model of what the budget would look like because we don't want to use too much one-time revenue in 1 year and cause a spike in future years. So this column F is the budget for the current year, and it ties out to the 3.98%. And the numbers that we're using. The green is the one-time revenue that we have, and then this orange is additional one-time revenue that we would need going forward each year to keep it around 4% of an increase. And so that's where the concern came up, that will we be coming up with that amount of additional revenue or under expenditures every year, and we shouldn't be. And so then going through it, that we've kept the same assumptions. I didn't want to go out on my own and change assumptions. But the biggest reason for the increase is the increase, let me pull it over. The increase in the budget growth year over year. Ryan did this nice schedule that in the last 2 years, the Board of Ed's increase has been kind of flat a little bit, growing a little bit, but our increase in the last 2 years has really spiked up. This is an operating cost. It's really spiked up in the last 2 years.
So that is this current year's budget and proposed next year's, correct?
Correct. This is the current year budget, and this is the proposed next year. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we can play with one-time revenues, but the underlying cause is this, as I see it, that the expenditures are growing faster than we can really support it without higher tax increases.
Correct. And we've talked about this numerous times. It's controlling the expenditure line. This is nothing new. We can handle projects, but you've got to control the operating expense line. So this is nothing new. This is something we've talked about a lot. It is an alarming graph. I will say that because for 5 years we had it pretty well stabilized, and now we've met some hardships. So with hardships come hard decisions. So I think that's where we're at today. So let's go through some of your other points, and we'll get back to this one because you had a couple other points, I think, right?
Yep. So let me pull up my email because I can't remember what they were from this morning. So we have different choices of what we could do. Let me just one is expenses growing too much. Possibly too much one-time revenue is being used, but if we don't use that, the tax increase will be higher. Maybe we can't
So you-
afford all. Go ahead.
Hold on, Marcia, but we have that one-time revenue to fund the reserves. So I mean, that's like almost a wash, because if we don't use it now, we gotta use it later. So I mean, at some point,
Correct.
that's a wash. That's,
The one-time revenue consists of three things. Let me. 1,450,000. That's the amount that the debt went up. We wanted to stick to that and not use one-time revenue to offset expenditures. This is direct one-time revenue. We're kind of using the one-time revenue of interest income to offset expenditures, but this is the direct revenue. We have fuel that we were using one-time revenue to reduce the spike in fuel, and then we used another 25 of ARPA just to try and get a soft number under 4.
right, we utilize that because of the hardships that we're dealing with. So I mean, that was calculated. So
Correct.
that
So.
was total.
The root of the problem is the growth in expenditures, as I see it. The one-time revenues, moving those around, but then tax dollars would be higher. Maybe we can't afford all the reserves that we want to put in, but that doesn't help the operating.
Correct. The reserves, though, again, if we don't pay them now, we got to pay them later, because a lot of those reserves are the vehicles that are coming up in the next few years. So if we cut that reserve for the fire truck, we're going to have to come up with another $100,000 down the road.
Yeah, and that was funded, their one-time expenditures more or less, and they were funded with one-time revenues.
Correct.
This schedule assumes that we're going to grow, which we've talked about since 2018, we're going to grow our capital expenditures, cash expenditures by $500,000 a year. Possibly that's too aggressive, but again, that is not part of that operating revenue. That's a capital expenditure. We've got the mill rate. Before this COVID spike, our average growth in mill rate was 0.96% without reval years. This year it was 1.78. We were still working off COVID, but maybe this is too conservative. And the last one is, although we've been using this graph for several years, maybe it's not as accurate, but we have nothing else right now. So those are my thoughts on it.
All right. So capital, we're starting to get a grip on, right? I mean, we got through the COVID years, and we got through the pandemic and the macro burst and all of that. And so now we have a capital committee, right, that is looking at these things. We have Ryan's model, and I think we have a grip on that going forward. So that 500,000 basically also becomes an irrelevant number, because we're going to have people looking at this year round now. It's the first time in a long time we've John and Ryan looking at capital, along with the whole team, looking at capital as a future thing, as in the year moment, and as a future outlook. So the capital side of that model doesn't stress me from the point of view of, again, we put 500,000 in, but I think between the capital committee and working with all the departments, we can hone in on that number. I think that number will come down probably in some years, maybe go up in others, but it'll be a controlled number. So that is, to me, that'll go away. That'll be managed.
And we have to remember that our cash this year for capital is only paying for paving and for reserves. And in theory, every year we're going to have paving and the reserves. So we need the $500,000 to go up, because we need, elevator studies, and we need new cars, and we can't count on one-time revenue every year to offset that, or ARPA or whatever else we've used. So that's the part here, that this number here is only reserves and paving.
Okay. Any comments from the team right now?
Do we think that 4 million in, 3 to 4 million a year for, capital is really,
For bonding.
for bonding is what we'll really do? I mean, I thought that we were really trying to get away from
The
the
bonding.
bonding.
We are,
Correct, and we may change that after we get the 10-year plan. This is just about what we've bonded every year when we haven't had police radios or new schools. So that could switch. It doesn't make a huge difference. This is 400,000 because the 4 million, because we were thinking 3 million a year plus $1 million from this year if we don't bond this year. But more likely, it's going to be 4 million, you know, maybe 0 or $1.5 million, and then 20 million. That when we decide to do a police station or a library, that so it's not going to be neat and clean like this 3 million is.
Right.
But
But
we
if
need
you-
to have something there because 500,000, when we're talking about all this other stuff is just not going to be enough based on what we see coming up.
understood. That I get now. Yep. All right. Again, that's what we have a capital committee now for, right? To get the line that to figure it out, to get a grip on it. So what can we do now in this near term? I mean, that's the
Right.
bottom line. What are we gonna get to the near term? So if we took out, say, $130,000, $150,000 worth of expenses in this year, and we took out and backfilled that with removed 150,000 of the money from the one-time revenues and back that out, and we keep the mill rate the same, which is just under 4. Would that work in your opinion?
I can, I can show you what that would look like. That if we take 150 out here, and make sure it's 150 that I just typed. And I take 150 out here. That still leaves us at 3.98. That
Yep.
It leaves us with another 150 we could use out here. But we wouldn't need to use as much here because see, it's gone down to 379 now. So we could not use, let's say, another 150 here. And then we wouldn't actually need to use it there. But I'm just trying to show it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, because you're on, because it's 150 left each year.
That's correct. So we still have issues but it certainly, it doesn't sound like much, but with a continuing cost, it certainly helps.
It always comes down to controlling overhead, Marcia. I mean, that's the bottom line, overhead. It's
Yes.
operating, and we're getting to a point now where we thought we had this sorted out, but it comes down to overhead. And can we afford to add overhead? And I think that's going to be the discussion tonight. I think that we got to go back through it and look in and see what we can do. So I think one of the first things that we got to look at, and we're going to have to promise the library something, is the $75,000 for the library. I think we need to make a promise to the library that we're going to do something, but we just can't do it right now until we figure out what's going on with Center School, the tearing down of it, what's gonna happen, but we give them our word that we're gonna sit with them and figure out something, and I think the Board of Finance's word has been good, and we've never backed out on anything, and since, I think Eileen, myself, and Dan have been on board, we've never backed out of an agreement of any sort. So I think, there, and Eileen, maybe you can pipe in too right now?
Who?
Eileen?
I mean, I guess I just feel like when we were starting that as a reserve, we're doing the same thing that we said we wouldn't want to do to the apparatus and the other things. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kicking the can down the road, right? I mean, if it's reduced a little bit maybe, but we still know that there needs to be a plan made for what happens next. And, we're saying that we have to control our overhead expenses, but if we're gonna just make that 150 next year, how does that really help us?
Do
I
you
see
think
the
it's gonna be
point.
like?
Are we ready for it? I get it. Go
I mean,
ahead.
we weren't even saying that it was gonna happen next year, we're just
Right.
building the reserve so that it could be done the year after.
Is there a way to take it down so maybe we spread it out over 3 years and 50, 50, and 50? I mean, if they're getting something, and maybe we just, like you said, we can't do it now. So what if we do 50, 50, and 50, and it becomes a 3-year, and in that time it gives us enough to work through the actual scope of what's going on at center school. We might, by putting less in, we've got the 87 for the mothballing that we know has to happen regardless. At that point, we've spent a little less, not the 75 and the 87, but we're doing 50 and 87, and maybe we'll get a better handle of exactly what's going on in that time frame before we give, when we come to the point where we need to give another 50. What does everybody think about that?
But we also want to remember, there may be more bites at the apple. It doesn't mean this year and then nothing till next year. This year, in 2024, what if we have additional revenues that we didn't think we were gonna in 2023, and we have a lot? We could reallocate that during the year. The other one is last year, the school didn't need the contingency. And so we have 400,000 there that if we're here at this time next year and we're saying, no, the school's coming in on budget, then we could allocate during the year, just a thought and a possibility.
Okay. So technically, we could try the 50 and then keep plugging away at other areas and not take it all away.
I think in order to move this needle, it's either all, you leave it in or you take it all at this point. That's my opinion. I just see, we make a promise, like Marcia said, we're gonna have something hopefully down the road. That's just my opinion on this.
I get it. I get it. I get it.
I'm on board with the library. Don't, you're missing my point. I'm on board with it.
I know,
I
but
just,
We know you are. That's definitely not a question at all. We know you are.
What about, we obviously have to control this expense line. So why don't we go through some of where we would cut, and then we can figure out, because this is something
then
we
come
can
back to it.
Come back
Come
to,
back
because
to
I mean,
it.
you make a great point, like, this is something we're gonna have to pay for.
Right.
But like, why don't we go to the expense line and see where we decide where we can control the expenses, and then we can go back there, maybe we can afford 75, maybe we can't, we'll just.
Right.
I think that
You're
might
right.
be-
Maybe just leave that until the last, like we did last night. So,
it comes overhead then. That's the only place you're gonna be able to cut is overhead.
Right.
I mean, that's the positions. That's the only place you're gonna make any kind of an impact right now, to get anywhere. So, I mean, if you're gonna look at it, you gotta look at the IT part top, because again, we discussed this numerous times, and there's not even really a job description with that. I think you guys talked about that last night. We all understand something has to be done. We all understand that there's a need there too, but we also have a chance to consolidate possibly with the school side. I think Ryan said it, if we don't do something, it'll never happen. So I mean, that's the type of area. I think if you look in the land use department, if you take out the part-time there and gave add $10,000 in on sporadic wages. That would give them some help there and some support. These are the things, that's the only place you're gonna get money. I mean, Center Fire came last night, they still got their $30,000 out, and they found a $20,000 mistake that they're gonna eat, so they're eating $50,000 from their they're eating $50,000 from their $300,000 budget. So unless you're cutting staff now that's there, people that are already in positions, where are you gonna find money that's gonna move needles? I'm at a loss. So maybe, Brian, where are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, my thing is here, I mean, I understand there's needs in town hall, there's needs across the entire spectrum of town. And these are tough calls, right? I mean, do we want to cut services for the town? Probably not. I don't think taxpayers would be happy. Do we want to cut stuff from the fire department or EMS? Probably not. That's health and safety, or the police department. The fact is, if building permits take a little bit longer, I think that's probably something the town can deal with. If a printer's broken for a day, it's unfortunate, but it's something that I think we have to do. I wish we had more money in this town. We can fund everything, right? I think we all at this table would like to say, when Tara comes, this is what I want. We get everything, but I just don't think we can afford it here. And I think that just given that, I think that's probably the low-hanging fruit. Unfortunately, I think that's where, we don't want to cut services to the town. I think that's the problem, right? I think that, and if we want this to pass, I think that's where it gives most value for every member of town. That's just my opinion.
We're looking at the future too here. I think
exactly.
We also thought the land use director's retiring, so you're going to get a new land use director in there that might want to go in a different
Building
direction,
department.
just like we got the health director in this year that wants to go in a new direction, and his new direction we fully supported with the sanitarium. So I mean, the new health director came in. I think he's awesome. My opinion, he's great hire, perfect job by the town side to hire someone that's good, and he's dynamic, and we can support him. And I think that's what we got to look for, because we are facing what Marcia brought up here. We got things that still get through. The one thing, Marcia, that I don't think you remembered, and maybe I'm wrong, which is possible, I've been sick for days here, is are we going to have any money left over from the new school, and how can we use that?
So we hope to have money left over from the new school. We have a meeting with them next week, but they're not going to commit until they're done, as they shouldn't. But there wouldn't be a difference that a substantial difference that, let's say they have $1 million left over. We would do all the budgeting the way we do it now, and this would change the $3 million instead. And it doesn't make a significant impact on the bottom line because we're paying it over 20 years.
Yeah, it is. It's what we were trying to, yeah.
Yeah, but it does make a little bit more of an impact in your thing, because aren't we paying less? No, never mind. And also Iroquois money, right, is coming in some point down the road, we hope.
We hope, but I understand that's been delayed.
All right, Brianna, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just, is there, the only other thing I can think of is the only other area, in addition to what Ryan mentioned, is the center school mothballing. Can we get any more risky on that 87? Throwing it out there. It's the only thing that's in my face that I knew was a topic of discussion, and I knew Glenn was talking about the fence, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we brought that from like 107 to 87. Is there anything that we can get a little more aggressive on that? That's I went through it today looking, and that was the only thing that really jumped out at me, other than the stuff we went over in detail about last night.
If I may, as I said in my email to you, I think it was late last night, was that to you or the group? anyway, I don't remember, but it was about the next steps as far as what we're gonna look at as a working group. And that is the levels of mothballing, which I don't even know what that means, but they told me that it could be a lot less based on what we do. You know, are we gonna keep the heat on low? Are we gonna completely cut the water? Are we turning all electricity off? What level of idle are we looking at? So it could be less than that amount. I just don't know what those costs are right now.
That was about the only thing I really could think of that jumped out that, you know, could move the needle a little bit. Otherwise, I'm kind of flat
Move
out.
that 20,000 down more than my original thought process. I think it's, the original, I had 44 out of there.
Yeah, you originally were going for a good 40, and I think we only changed it by 20, so that was kind of jumping back and forth. I was like, okay, what if we dropped it down to 40, and just got a little aggressive there.
So that's out of 20,000 and the 150 that we're looking for. So you need another $120,000.
Okay.
So go ahead, Mary, any thoughts? Eileen, any thoughts?
The one thing about center school carrying costs, that could be a one-time event, right? So if they demo the building in 1 year, that could be a one-time event. So wonder if we should think about using one-time revenue or revenue for that piece, because that's not going to be a recurring thing, right? Unless we decide, unless the building stays around and we decide to put a library or the community
So
center.
that's that big question, are we gonna mothball it 2 years in a row, because then we really can't do the one-time
Right.
revenue to pay for that, so that's the problem.
Well,
Right.
if we have the
But then-
additional bond, we could pay for a demo out of that excess.
From the
school.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
But
No,
that's,
no,
that's,
no, we're all talking.
that's a kiss and a promise. We don't know
I
what we
know.
wanna.
Yeah.
I know.
But we don't even have a number now, so I'm
No.
just wondering like,
If we
should
take that line out.
take the
We
line
just take the
out
line out.
and then
Yes.
basically use some of our excess revenue as a one-time mothball for the year and then figure it out?
See where that puts us.
Because we don't know. I mean,
We
like you said, the
don't know.
80,000. Tara said it might be less. Wheels, it might be more. We don't
Yeah,
know.
we just
right?
don't
And
know.
that's where
I
I'm
do
at.
like that thought process. It's
Our thoughts, Marcia.
The only problem I have with that is this is showing that we're already short on one-time revenues. That we could go up here and take out 87, say we do it in 24, and 25, and then we take out 87 for going forward, although we probably have to increase the bonds, that but using one-time revenue to cover it, to me, it doesn't make sense because this is what we're short in one-time revenues already.
Mhm.
I like the idea of taking it out in the future years, but
but not this year.
Not this year.
So is it
That's
worth
fine.
getting a little aggressive and bringing it down to 67 versus? I know it doesn't move in the scheme of things. We're
But
probably
sometimes the
just
little things add up.
yeah.
I've seen that in the past.
So go back 3 steps or 10 steps, Marcia, here for a second. So we talked about the Board of Ed overage this year. We had 380 or 390 in the contingency, and you took 400,000 out of the one-time revenue to cover the rest, correct?
I had until today that I updated that number, that they're short 578, and I took the 393 contingency, and we need another 185.
So where'd you put the remaining number that you had left over for that?
So that's flowed to the bottom, that, and it's all part of fund balance. We're not adding a lot to fund balance. I was trying to do napkin math last night, but Glenn, I just don't do it like you do. And, I thought that we were to be 500,000, but we're essentially adding 300,000 to fund balance, 155 available for future appropriations, and 155 not available to appropriations. So I think that we've accounted for almost all of the one-time revenues this year.
Okay.
Well, in talking about little pockets, since I'm so good about, doing elephant in the room talk, does it work to take away 25 from the BOE? I know Bob said that they couldn't. I'm just wondering if we're talking about just little tiny movements. Maybe that's about
I
it.
think the hard part is
I
when
know.
you look at the graph I created, you
Yeah.
see where the problem
Yeah,
is. It's
I
not at
know.
the
You're
BOE,
right.
Yeah.
I
it's
know.
at the town.
I know.
I mean, that's,
You're right. Okay, scratch
And
that.
the-
Ignore.
And the town side took a bigger hit because we added the security officers.
Yeah.
So that was a big increase.
Yeah.
you know, to the point, yeah.
That is a
So,
good point.
I mean, that's something that we have in there that, kind of came mid-year.
And we have a looming recession, the economy hasn't been in our favor, the contract prices of everything have gone up. It's not the overhead entirely. And
No,
overhead
it's-
took
no,
a
it's
dip
not.
in 2019, 2020, so that blue line's been all over the place.
Well, 2019, 2020 was when we did the COVID budget, so we kind of held things.
And
in.
positions weren't replaced.
Absolutely correct, Sarah, you're absolutely correct. You can't control those, but you gotta control what you can control. And controlling headcount is something we can control. We can't control fuel, we can't control electricity, we can't control a lot of outside the box inflation. We can control headcount, control adding headcount. That is something well within our control. The bottom line is, the numbers show here, this graph that Ryan put together really shows the school has flattened out over the past 5 years, and the town last year and this projected year are way above. So looking at that, you can see where that's a very clear cut of where the expenditures are. Now, again, center fire, I know they've gone up and EMS has gone up, but they took a $50,000 hit this year out of their budget on a $360,000 or $500,000 budget. They took a 10% cut on their budget from request. So I think that what you can't control is headcount, and that's the way it is. I mean, that's the reality of where we're at right now.
You're talking
So
about
I think that
2 potential part-timers.
Well,
And
yeah,
so
I-
what,
But it's year over year, so it's always going to be.
It
what's,
is.
and what's the dollar amount that you're looking for 150K to shave? Is that right?
I don't think we're looking for a number, I think we're looking to get just underneath to where it's more manageable.
Correct.
And the other thing is, we did this exercise last year, and I remember the first day on the board, I couldn't believe how much, what drives our budget is salaries, right? It's like 70%, 75% of our budget, so we can cut conferences for the entire, or supplies, but it's not really gonna move the needle, and eventually you're gonna need those, to put those back. It's headcount is really where it's at. And short of cutting people, I think this is probably the solution, right?
I think Ryan asked you the question last night of the, those 3 positions, what are the, I know the priority is all of them, but what is the actual priority? I mean,
I think it was sanitarian,
But then I don't
IT, and then the land use building, and then that, the additional one that was like 36.
And just when you're saying that part of this is, none of this is the security officers. Part of this is the security officers, but the Board of Ed took half of that in their budget for the unarmed.
oh, that's
And
true.
they've got their ARP-ESSER phasing in and still came in pretty flat.
Thank you for
Right.
clarifying that.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I forgot about that they're taking they took the non-unarmed. We knew it was gonna be tough. We knew it wasn't gonna be easy. I mean, and I think the late night meetings have proved that. So, I'm scanning, I'm looking. And we had this discussion last night. I wasn't expecting the email, obviously, from Marcia today, but we had the
Why
discussion.
don't you take the 20,000 from the salary survey and do something with that?
The salary survey is not in this budget year. It's not in the budget year that we're working on right now. It's in the budget year that we're currently on. So that salary survey isn't even in here.
And the salary survey is looking forward to pay our people.
And how are we gonna pay them when we identify the gaps?
You plan it though. I mean,
We have to plan for it.
How you figure that out, Sarah? You figure that out very simply. 80% of our staff is over the average. 80% of our staff is over the average in pay for the area town. 7% of the staff is equals our average pay. 20% is below average. We obviously have a 20% issue. But you just don't feed the bottom, you gotta chop the top. That's how everybody does it in the real world. You only have so much salary that goes around, and that salary then has to be it's internal equity. You know, that salary has to be distributed. So some of the people that are making 25% over the average of the area town might get 1%, and then you drive the bottoms up. I mean, you work it out through attrition. We talked about that last night with the admin position, your admin position. And the Board of Ed, when they get rid of someone with 30 years of experience at 100,000, brings in someone at 60,000. That frees up salary that can be distributed along the way. Nobody's looking to cut the overall payroll. We're looking to utilize the payroll in a more efficient manner. And that means hard work. Yes, it does. And it's not going to be easy. There's nobody saying it's going to be easy, but that's how we all run our businesses. We bring someone in, they retire. We don't hire at the retired rate. We never hire at a retired rate. And no corporate world I know of hires at a retired rate. You bring in someone less and they work up.
Because this is the
And the
real
same
world.
thing with, we talked about this, even the part-time person for Dan. Not one of us in the corporate world, if our manager came to us and said, we need a part-time person, we need 40,000, and we don't even have a job description, formal job description, we'd be like, yeah, sure, here's $40,000. That
We have a
doesn't
formal
work in
job
our
description.
world. I mean,
We have a job.
it
Guys,
just
this is-
doesn't work.
It's unacceptable.
All right.
So that's the reality. I mean, the graph is very telling, I think. The graph shows last year's budget and this year's budget are way above
Are you happy now?
previous
Source my
5 years.
IT.
And we keep using the word frugality.
Such a bullshit.
We're, frugal, and you're right, we can't control fuel. We can't control things. We can control headcount. That's the only thing we can control. And that's the reality. And it's a hard reality. Nobody wanted it. In fact, this budget, as far as I was concerned, passed last night. I've been sick of bed for 2 days, and like I say, the team did a great job. I think at the end, this budget was, last night they had it. It wasn't until, I believe you said, let's run it through the model. And Marcia runs it through the model, and then it brings up these points, which was very smart, very intelligent, and it brought up something that we were missing because we weren't doing that. So that's a credit to you to bring this up to us, to show us that we were missing something. You were smart enough to say, hey, let's look at this through another glass, through another eyes, and we did. And it brought up some highlights, and we have to manage these. And nobody likes to make these decisions. Nobody likes tough decisions. Nobody likes to be the bad person in the room, but I mean, this is the reality. And I think that's
Glenn,
where...
Glenn, just so you know,
Glenn,
just so you know, the
I-
first
I
selectman just left the room.
Tara
so-
left the meeting, so,
And so did our IT director.
and
All right,
so
let's make the cut.
we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to go at this. So,
Take them. Take them. I'm ready to go now. Now I'm fired up.
are you,
I'm ready to
but hold on a second. I just wanna make sure, are we good? Can we bring center, can we bring that down? Can we bring that down from 87 to 67? I just want a group, because that was on the table, we talked about it. That's a little pocket. And if it's just little pockets here and there that we can get to a solution, that's fine. So we'll go pocket by pocket so we don't get, is that okay? So we don't get, okay. So
Right.
bring it down to 67, right, Marcia? Was that from 87 to 67?
I
Skip that. 3 minutes.
skip that patch because it's showing up on our, oh, yeah, is that on this computer?
She's working.
Marcia's got it.
She's got
The
it.
patch?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
she's got it. She's on it.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute.
That's okay. That's okay.
67.
67, then we move to the next, right?
Yep.
Which is,
All right, so,
Savings of 20, if we're gonna
That's-
keep a running tally?
yes, that's a
Right.
savings of 20. Who wants to keep the running, who
Keep
wants
the
to keep the
running
running
tally
tally? I don't know if it,
do we need a running tally, or
I don't
we
really
just run
know.
the model and see where it
We're
goes?
just-
Yeah.
so can we, oh, I like that idea. Can we just make a change and look at the model and then
Yeah, I think that.
if we get to a good point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Here we go. All right. So we'll see, where does that wind us up?
We might lose this, I don't know.
It's fine.
It's
what it is.
It's what it is.
It's what happens. It's fine. Just moving, I'm just gonna move forward.
So, Glenn, you there?
Glenn?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Go
just
ahead.
making
You
sure.
guys-
You go quiet.
You guys run, I'm watching. I need a minute here. Hold
Yep.
on.
So-
Oh, no problem, I got it. Huh?
You guys wanna, so
Yeah.
we should go to IT, right?
I
We talked
think,
about that.
because Marcia, all right, so,
I'm listening,
okay, so Marcia, did you adjust the center school down from 87 to 67?
right here, yep.
Perfect, okay, where does that lead us on the model? It probably didn't move anything, I just.
Maybe a little.
Yeah, because I mean, if we can.
I'm just
keep
trying.
them, I mean.
Yeah, I
we'll
get
see
it,
how it goes,
that's why I
right?
just wanted to go little by
Each
little.
time, yep.
And do we have to call this?
Let me just do it over here, then,
Whatever works. I don't know how to get rid of it. Skip.
doesn't do much.
Okay. So that, okay, so it didn't do much, okay, that was a good, good little test there. Okay, so, moving on, there was nothing on the assessor, I guess I'm just gonna keep. We were running it really tight on legal, right, because we had cut a lot on the legal, and,
Take out the retain, right?
no, okay,
That's
so.
not insurance as much.
Yeah, no, you can't. All right, so,
So the other question I had, but Dan's not here now. On the IT line item, there was, and maybe Marcia, you know about this, but the communications had price increases, but that was a $21,000 increase. Is there any of that could get phased in and be done over a course of several years? Is it licensing or?
So the biggest thing of that was 16 or 18,000 for email. That switching to we've got 6,000 in the capital for the computers that are shared, and we've got money here for the individual computers moving over to a subscription service instead of every 5 years updating from Microsoft 2015 to 2020. That's what this is. Overall, it's cheaper to do it this way.
Okay,
It just hurts in the operating in 1 year.
okay. So next year I don't know.
Next year it'll be in here too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to look at.
I guess I should say it's cheaper in this year to do it this way, but probably not cheaper overall.
all right.
But we had to do something because our security is leaving us because it's so old.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and it's not, yeah. And it's not like we knew these one-offs could potentially be problematic. We had this discussion, we talked about it. Jesus, this really sucks.
Problem is that one-time stuff is great for,
Right,
the curve of the
right, but it
bubble.
was, the problem was
But now
is that
the
we're adding it in and
expenditure-
it's not going away,
And the
so.
expenditure is too high, that's all it is.
I know, I
You see
agree.
why.
No, I'm with you 100%, man. 100%. This was why it was so difficult last night. All right, so let's remove the, what was, I had it on the back of the paper. Tara was, number 1 was sanitarian.
Yep.
So if we go backwards,
Yeah, I mean, plus, I think we all recognize sanitarians, the health.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
non-negotiable.
I don't think
I
that's
agree.
Non-negotiable.
right,
So
no,
I
no,
have to
no,
get that.
That's
I'm not
something I
cutting
don't
that.
think we can't.
I'm talking, well,
right?
I'm going through her list that she read off.
In the land use building, we have the part-time, 23,920 in part-time
Perfect.
wages, but maybe we add back in the seasonal
Yeah,
sporadic.
for sure.
Yep.
Make it like,
Yep.
it was, right? I mean,
So, Marcia, what line is that?
That's 205.
So let's go there, because that was number 3 on her list of, when you asked her, Ryan.
Yes.
So we would add back in 5,500, we would return the seasonal sporadic and remove the 23,920.
Oh, it's there. Good job.
You're welcome.
I thought it was over there.
That, yeah, I want.
No, I made the mistake of touching that computer last week when I was trying to talk, and I was like, you know, this is just not a good zone for me.
So we did 2, right? And then,
Yep, so
did we
we,
do Marcia, did we do the IT as well?
no, we did not do that yet, because what I was doing was going backwards.
Oh,
I was
okay.
going from
Oh.
4, I was trying to go 4, 3,
Do we want to see the model now? Just see where it's at?
let's do that.
Can we see the model now, just see where it's at? We can-
And then we would take this 18,420, I would think we would take it out of here. Sorry, 38,420. Oh. It doesn't make much of a difference, on the percent increase just because it's not a full decimal. Even when I don't take the one-time revenue out.
And I know that that last page of that it was number 4, the salary of the human services increase was to add 3796 onto part-time wages. I just don't think that was number 4. The salary of the human services increase was 3796, 3,796. Do we want to try taking 25 away on the capital for the library and see if that changes it and just, you know, see what it looks like? I'm
Did we
just,
take out IT yet?
no. Bear with me for a minute.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep,
I'm good.
I know.
Yeah, no, this is great. We're gonna get there. We just have.
We're gonna get there.
work
We're just-
We're working there.
We're just going nice and slow.
Yep.
It's like how,
I'll say take some of my overtime out, a little more of my overtime if it helps, and if we need it for W-2s or something, I'll come back to you.
okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
good with that.
Yep.
Thank you, Marcia. Look at that.
And then we said we're 25,000 on the library.
Well, that was my idea, the 50-50-50, just trying to, again,
Did she throw that in?
she's gonna do that next, I think.
Oh, do you want me?
Yeah, can you do that?
Yeah,
I feel
so
like
reduce that 25. Yeah.
this might be completely and totally a waste of time. I just thought if we just did little,
It's, I mean,
It's
it's
tiny
we're being
little
diligent, we're being
bits
diligent,
here
and
and
we're
there.
doing the right
And
thing.
if we can just,
We don't wanna do that.
I
We
don't wanna
wanna
do this. I'm like, I don't wanna do this. I don't want to.
Something we can save, save it, you know?
That's why I just thought, let's just pick, and we went 4, 3, library 25, let's go there.
Did we just adjust the library 50,000 or did we adjust it down 50,000 or did we?
We're adjusting it down 25.
25.
Down 25 to
Okay,
50.
sorry. Again, I can't.
That's okay.
It's
don't
a
worry about it.
stretch to see.
All right, so how did that, so it's like, I wanna spin the wheel, how's it looking?
Or Marcia's just like, what can I just understand about $20,000 isn't even.
I know,
25, but
I
a lot
know.
of 20,000s and 25s could eventually.
I mean, we've done the exercise in the past of adding those little pieces back in because it didn't move the
That's
needle
what I was
enough to
going
move it.
with,
It was
so-
like, well, we needed new risers at one of the schools and.
So I was trying to see if we just did little, like how we add backs, if we took aways and littles, maybe that would work.
So still not doing much.
Right? Up next is
What's next, okay?
IT.
IT.
I've touched everything that I can avoid but that.
I think we might have to move into the library
We're
next. Just to see where it's at.
we're gonna have to keep, and then, I know this will be the of unpopular opinion, but the only other thing I can say is it would be either you take, and I'll put this out in
But
that.
that's not going to be a recurring expense. It's only a recurring expense for a couple of
That's
years.
the problem. So, I can't, we're talking about recurring expenses. We're not getting away from this. We're just gonna keep it, and it's gonna keep that marker.
And that's like,
So
it's like
like,
cutting reserves doesn't help us either, right?
No.
'Cause that's
No,
what we want
no.
to have
We need
in
to
the-
spend
no,
later.
and I was okay at the 50 with the library because I was sitting there going,
Cutting reserve,
what?
cutting reserve, not gonna help.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
that's
was
what
just
I'm saying.
bringing, the library was a new reserve, so I was trying to tackle what was new in my mind, in a sense, and go from there, because those are the drivers, right? The new stuff is the drivers. It's the stuff that's not there, it's the stuff that we're not used to seeing. So we went in order of,
Move the library down to 25. Because when we talked last night, they didn't blink when we said maybe they could match us 50-50, right? There was no blink whatsoever on that. So if you go with Brianna's first thought process of 25 for the library or whatever we're going to do with center school over 3 years, that gets them 75 over the 3. Then if they want to match it, Marcia also brought up a point earlier, I think, that we all sort of glazed over, and that we can still reevaluate even at the end of this year if we have money left over that's going to come in on a positive.
Yeah.
We can evaluate the middle of next year. Marcia, correct me if I'm wrong, so go ahead. Maybe
That was my point, yes.
yeah. And,
Okay.
and
I'm struggling a little. I apologize.
no, Glenn, you're fine. We appreciate you being here when,
So one
So I
thing,
think
before you hit the library, one thing I'm wondering is, where did it go? Registrars that, if you look at the registrars, we have a new person doing the budget. We've never spent more than 100, and the budget is 113. It includes primaries and things. Could we put a $10,000 negative contingency in there like we do for the police?
yeah. Yeah.
Nobody else is talking.
no, I'm liking that. I'm good. I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
That's the, we're moving the needle, we're making it happen. Yeah.
We took out 6,600 here. We put it in contingency just to show a point. We're either gonna need all or nothing of that contingency. Does 6,600 really make a difference? Can we take that out of contingency? But we have 400,000 more in there.
Right, it ain't gonna make a difference. Go ahead, Marcia, do your thing, go ahead.
I'm just trying to write them down as I do this.
I think though, all the buckets now, I think we've got enough here, this is chasing now, the only thing left is, and I've missed something, is the part-time art IT, right? And then let's close it out. Let's close it out.
And then come back. I mean,
I'm in with that.
you are?
Yeah.
Glenn,
I think we should do it.
Yeah,
I have an
Bonus
idea.
aside.
go
So,
ahead.
just hear me out. If we move the money around, go back, I'm so sorry, Marcia, I owe you dinner after these words come out of my mouth. If we move money around, we go back to where we were last night, and we moved it around so the taxes increased, not from 3.98, but even if it put it at like 4.2, 4.3, whatever it was, all the positions stayed in that Tara wanted to add, the taxes, and put it to vote. And put it
Let
to
the
vote in the
voters
town
decide.
with a high tax rate and let it ride.
Yep.
And let the voters decide. And if the voters turn it down because it's over 4%, I know we were trying to preserve the under 4% because under 4% has trouble passing, but if we just let it ride high and it passes,
That's it.
then we've done it. Then we've done it, right? If it doesn't pass, then there would be absolutely no reason why anybody would not understand having to come back into this room and make the cuts that we're trying to make right now. That's my idea. That's my thought. If I understand what's going on in my mind correctly. I would say,
I'm on board with it, and honestly,
add it
like,
back in, let it ride, raise the taxes, try to get the help we need, and if it passes, it passes. It's not, sometimes I feel like if a budget doesn't pass, it looks bad on us because like we didn't do our job looking through it.
Brianna,
Yeah,
Brianna,
yeah,
what are you gonna do 2 years down the road when you overload these again? That's the thing is not living in the year. The thing is adding things that continue on. So we keep adding in and adding in and adding in. The graph shows so much add in that at what point do we break the bank and we can't go reverse? At what point do we stack up the overhead so high we get to a point where the town says enough's enough? Right? We can't
Then we
afford
make the
this.
hard cuts, we make the hard cuts then. I mean, you say, okay, the town can't sustain, either the growth catches up and we have a higher tax base, which with all the development coming in, I know that
looks
we
like,
add that stuff into the models, but either we say, we've tried this, it's a failed experiment if we need to, and it forces the hand that when somebody retires that we're hiring back at a lower rate if that's what drives changes in overhead.
yeah, and here's the thing, to be honest, it's like Dan said, you want it now, you pay for it in your taxes. You want it later, you pay for it in your debt, or you don't do anything at all.
Well,
I don't know.
The only thing, I get Glenn's point, because the
Yeah, I
only thing
do, I
is,
agree.
if we
too.
go forward and let it go to the town and say
And
it passes,
passes.
right?
Yep.
Then we're back here next year, and then we're cutting current employees, which is a lot harder than cutting asks from the first selectman for additional positions. I would hate to be the person to say, we have to cut someone that's working here, that's a good worker.
I don't wanna do that.
We don't wanna do that, and we know, like, the 70% of our budget is salaries, right? So where else are we gonna cut? There's nowhere else to cut.
Can
But
I be devil's advocate here though? But didn't we expect at some point that our tax rate was gonna be high in this debt bubble? Didn't we expect that it was gonna be high? So is it better to put us in there and put that foot in the water and be like, okay, we're here,
But the
we
tax-
can't
the
get
tax-
out of it?
But the tax rate's high because of debt service, this is not high because of debt service, we've solved for that
Right.
one-time revenues.
Right.
This is high because we're
Nope.
overspending the
Yep.
expenditure line, and
Yep.
that's the biggest problem.
Yep.
The
It's high
expenditure
because of
line's the
debt.
problem here.
It's
But
high
I mean-
because of debt.
But
But
you need
it's-
the personnel to provide the services in the town. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, maybe savings become attrition. I mean, Tara mentioned a position the other night. She said, well, maybe we don't need it, but I think we do. But maybe that's the hard decision that's made, that maybe we don't need it, or maybe we can't do it. And so, I mean, there is turnover, there typically is going to be turnover in a year, and that's the decision for
But I
whoever's
think
sitting the
that,
first selectman's seat
Correct.
to make.
I think that the one thing I would say is with caution, like, it's, you've said, everybody has said really great points. Like Ryan said, it's not gonna happen if we don't force it, right? It's not gonna happen if we don't make the decision and figure it out. Then the issue does become, if we do this and it passes and someone retires or someone leaves and someone new comes in, I think you have to be prudent at their rate. I just think we are in a really tough, dicey situation.
But the schools do it all the time.
I know they do. I know they do. And
So it's
maybe,
possible, I
maybe
guess.
I don't disagree with that. I just, you know, it's all about, like you said, we sit at this table, we want to give everybody everything. But, you know, and what did we, the hardest year we ever had was my first year when a group of 6 had to decide for the entire town because we couldn't put it to vote. And I don't, so I so appreciate the fact that the town can vote on it. I am either way.
Let's go back to how we got into this conversation today.
Yep.
Let's go back and turn the clock back. Last night, as a group, you all did wonderful, you managed this, and we went through this, right? You guys came to a number, I loved it, maybe some disagreements, but that's 1 of 5 or 1 of 6 of us, and you came to a group. Then we ran it through, and I know it's an antiquated model, but our financial director, who has 30 years of experience, says, hey guys, we got some red flags we got to address, right? Now, they're not crucial, but I was always brought up, if there are red flags or little landmines out there, spending money ain't gonna fix your red flags.
No.
Managing the expense line is always gonna fix your red flags. That's the only thing you can control, is managing your expense lines. Once you let the expense lines go, you're in trouble. And that's from my past experience. I mean, I'm only one of us, and my vote would be not to go above 4. I don't think that's the responsible number going forward. I don't think, again, how do you justify positions without job descriptions? I mean, it's simple as that.
So I do wanna say that there, what was not just, I don't wanna like keep beating a dead issue either, cause it has been beaten quite a lot. It wasn't in our binder, but there was
The priority.
a priority form, and it was laid out of a good description of the part-time IT help. We did have it. I did not have it. Mary produced it.
It wasn't explained to us that way either, though. So I mean,
I don't disagree with that,
But it was in the documentation.
but it was in the documentation, so I just wanna make sure that on record, it was in the documentation, I do have it. So I just wanna make sure that,
Even
in
though
fairness.
it's there though, I mean, we're in a tough spot, right? We all agreed last night, we liked the number, we liked where we're at.
So good.
Then we saw the model, then I ran the expenditures over time, and that to me just shows you we're overspending now. So where do we cut? You gotta cut the expenditure line. 75% of our expenditures is salary. So we don't do paving for a year, that's not a solution, we don't do this. It's gotta be, and again, we don't wanna cut anybody that's working here. We don't wanna not give a raise this year, so where do we cut? And I think where you look at it is our open positions. I mean, a hiring freeze, that's really what this is. And that's, I think, just keeps everyone happy. I don't think anybody would be happy saying, oh, you know what, we gotta cut this person's job because we just have to cut the
well, I'd
budget.
hate to not give a 2 1/4 raise to add positions if that was how we wound up making it work, which doesn't make any sense, because that's not fair to anyone.
Right, right.
And then those are existing people, and we're literally down to 3 positions because we all agree that the sanitarian just cannot not be.
That's a
In the
health, that's a
budget.
health.
I get it. No, I get it.
But what does that, I mean?
Eileen, last night, weren't we down to like 375 and you proposed already into this budget a little bit of a buffer?
I asked that we add some of the money back into the general fund.
And we did, right? It went from 375 to 39 something, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we are trying to keep the general
Sure.
fund.
We're already putting a burden on the taxpayers. And I think that, again, history shows us that one budget over the past 25 years, over 4% is passed. We're in a recession, banks are going under, and I think over 4 to me is a number that we can, I can't justify it personally. I mean, again, we're a board and we'll vote on it. But I just don't see adding overheads as an answer. Adding to the expense line in the next, if Tara wins the next election or whatever, that's her headache. But if someone else wins the election, that's their headache. And it's a headache that it's going to get away from us. And I think that's what Marcia's alarms were today, that we can't let this get away from us. We can control it still. We have a chance here to stay on top of this. We are the people that were elected to oversee the funds. We have a chance to stay fiscally responsible on top of this. Are we going to do that, or are we going to rely on a vote and leave the numbers in? I mean, that's up to you guys. I really, my gut is to go with where we are now and make a vote. But I mean, obviously, it's up to you guys.
What'd you say?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we talked about how tough, I mean, we keep hearing from everyone how tough the inflation is. And, taxpayers can't vote at the pumps. They can't vote when their insurance is going up. They can vote with the town. And I think this year especially, we all knew this was going to be the toughest budget year, probably besides COVID. You guys were in budget year. It's definitely my toughest year because this year and last year. It's just really hard, and I think you hear outside in the world hiring freezes. We're not doing anything. People are making do with what they have, and I've heard the first select woman say fiscal fragility. This is our version of fiscal fragility, which is we can't add headcount right here. We just can't. And I think, I was okay with it last night because we looked at the model and we said, okay, we're below 4. We were able to add things back in.
Checking all those boxes.
Let's move forward. Then we see the model and we say, ooh, this doesn't really fit in. And then when I see, and again, when I saw the budget in the beginning, I thought, wow, this is crazy. Board of Ed's in 3s and town's at 8. I get, they both are facing the same type of pressures, inflation pressures, etc. It's not a fun situation to be in, but we have to manage that. And my vote tonight would be to put a passable budget towards the taxpayer and make these situations, make what we think is best. And not managing to a budget, but managing to something that we think is fair for across the board. And I think the Board of Ed added 1 position in the grand scheme of things. I think the town should add 1 position in the sanitarian, and then it's a fair deal. That's my opinion.
Mary, what do you got?
Brianna?
No, I'm staying quiet for a minute.
I'm thinking, I hear everything you say, for
Yep.
sure. It's just so hard when you know something like IT had 2 people for all those years and then went down to 1. How long is one person supposed to be able to do everything? And it's everything you do, and every office runs on IT, whether it's hardware or software. So, things like that, it is a need.
And I would say we've added more positions because we did add the ASSO, and we have added 2 police officers mid-year. SROs.
Right. which is not being covered. By ARPA.
Consolidate, which I think is the key answer here. How do you get to consolidation? How do you get there? For the bigger efficiency and the bigger picture. Are we band-aiding with this, or are we getting to a bigger picture?
Can we go back to, you know, I wholeheartedly trust Marcia. She's never steered us wrong. If she's saying there's a problem, there's a problem. Is it something that, you know, we can dip in and dip out of? Or is it something that we really need to make that just cut? That's literally, that's, because we've taken everything else out. But we haven't taken the IT position out and we haven't seen what it looks like. What if we take that out and nothing changes?
That's kind of what I'm thinking is gonna happen.
So then there's more that needs to be cut, and that's the problem.
I think we send it to the voters. I mean,
And the other issue too is we, I just totally lost my train of thought, so forget it, because I had a really good, and it's gone. So keep it.
So if those positions aren't moving the needle, and we have to cut more, so what else are we cutting?
Or the other thing, but we also had the same discussion here last night, that if we put it to the vote and it got turned down, we would come back and cut. So it's like, we're back to where we started, where we're cutting, and we haven't put it to the vote. And, but then I feel like we're going again, then not following what Marcia's saying about the 10-year model. We put it all up on the thing, you know, for all the shareholders to see. Are we going against that because now we're getting off track, is my question. So we put this big presentation up on Tuesday. Are we going against that presentation by letting this ride the way it is with, like Marcia said, she's concerned about that exposure?
I guess, I mean, one of the things that drove me to run for the Board of Finance was a frustration that the board would cut things. And I know that we are responsible for making sure that the finances are managed and everything in town, but I always would get frustrated that the voters often didn't get a chance to vote on some of those changes. Like, are they willing to open up their purses and spend more? And I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, I completely understand the concept of hiring freeze, and we're looking towards the future, making sure that we can manage our expenses. I think it puts more onus on the first selectman on the town side, that replacement of people retiring comes in at a different, I mean, you have to change how you manage the hiring, and if the overhead is the line that's driving it, you know, we know that there always is turnover in positions, and that it needs to be a conscious effort to look for savings. You know, you're not necessarily going to get a lesser employee, but you might get somebody with less experience that grows into the role, like she mentioned, you know, the admin had. So,
But right now we're not doing that.
we're not, but that's, then the decision is, we're either cutting positions or you're
I
hiring.
also, and my concern is I don't wanna, like, that, it would be harder to come back next year and have to cut people. Right
But
now,
that's
that's
not
not
our
a
job.
person. It's not our
It
job,
doesn't
but
become our job.
it's not our job, but, so then, similar to what we're talking about right now, then,
Well, it
we're not
would be
even-
our
we're talk-
job, right? If the
We-
budget
it kind
failed,
of would be if we had to say,
it'd be
hey,
us making
we
the
can't
budget.
do this, so we're gonna bomb all this down. It's up to the person who's sitting at the head of the you know, the first select person to make that cut.
Yep.
But we're responsible for taking that money and saying,
But then,
figure it out.
at the head of the table, they need to say, you know what, instead of losing a body, we're gonna cut travel and conference. I mean, that's kicking the can down the
Yeah, it
road,
is.
but there's, I mean, that's a decision. In the previous administration, you know, in the tight budget years, he came and said, I wanna see nothing over 1.2%. And that's what the departments gave him. And that's what it came in at,
That
and
is
that's,
true.
and it's possible. It wasn't done, it came in at 6.85 or something, right, this year? So, I mean, it is possible, that's the decision that's made.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Right, this is the most
What do
divided
you
we've
want?
ever
I
been.
know.
I'll be honest with you, this is the most divided we've ever been.
And you leave it as of last night, and we ignore the red flags ahead of us. is basically what we're saying. We are the most intimate with the numbers of any people in this town. Even the people voting, how many people do you really think are involved in the numbers as deep as we are? So we're the ones that are elected to get into these numbers, to drive these numbers, to review these numbers.
But to say to ignore the red flags bothers me.
Yeah, and
It like bothers me to the core,
But
that
I,
statement.
So we're choosing to not ignore the red flag, to or above the red flag at 4.2. So I mean, at what point do you guys, as a group, are going to say, hey, we put this through last night, and someone with 30 years of experience who didn't really tell us what we had to do, just said, hey, these are the flags from my experience that have cropped up. Are we going to ignore the red flag and say, okay, we'll put it to the town vote? And then, to your point, Eileen, at what point then, if the town votes it down, at what point do we, what are you doing next? Because now we've spent 10,000 or 15,000 on a referendum. What are you doing next if it does come? It could pass, you're right, which adds overhead, which I've never been a fan of, but I would agree to it if you guys are on board. But what do you do next? At what point then are you willing to go back if this thing fails and say to the Board of Ed, you probably got to lose 0.5%, a couple $100,000. Town, you got to lose probably 0.5% to make this work as well. So now we're chasing 600,000 possibly.
I mean, my
Right?
thought, there's still, we need to, I mean, even if it comes back and it fails, we still need to propose a budget that meets the needs of the town. So, you know, the town is getting by, you know, with the people resources that it has right now, albeit difficult, with difficulty, but then maybe it comes back and, you know, we talk, and we've been talking over and over about the positions, and we revisit the positions, and then we go back to Board of Selectmen or first selectwoman, and we go to the Board of Ed and say, how do we move the needle? Like, where are you willing to go? But we have to we review everything, but it's not 100% our responsibility to.
the only thing that's hard going back to the Board of Ed is you look at their increase, they're within reason.
Yeah.
The town is not.
Yep.
And I think the problem here is if we open the floodgates and say the town approves this, what doesn't say the Board of Ed says they got 7% last year, let's do 7 tomorrow, and then we get out of.
Because we built that relationship.
No, I agree with that,
Yeah.
but I think
But that
think
relationship
that,
was
you know,
also can be changed
it
just
can
it's
be
changing
changed,
in
and I
relation.
think we have to keep with it, and then that relationship was built with trust, and they've been great at bringing sound, fiscal responsible budgets forward. I mean, this is not really, the town side isn't fiscally responsible at this point. At this level, it's just not. I mean, I know they have needs, but it's just not, it's not what the town can support at this point.
Marcia, can I ask what, I see you playing? Just trying to follow what you're playing with.
What's the least amount of red flag we have to address this year? Well, should.
I'm just trying to look, it's not moving much, and I'm wondering if it's the rounding again. That,
Get those significant digits out there.
I know, right? Spoken like a true math teacher.
What it all comes down to, I guess, as a team right now is, are we willing to ignore the red flags that have been proposed by our experts and take it on and say, you know what, we'll put it to the voters, and then at some point, if this red flag becomes true that Marcia's put up, at what point does the real hammer come down? You know, the old pay me now, pay me later type of thing. I mean, are we willing to expose ourselves and the town against our expert, you know, red flag? That's the decision you have to make tonight.
It was like, I forget if it was Dan or Ryan, it was like 2.5, 3, he would know now, 3 weeks ago, said, well, why is the town side so high, the school side isn't? I forget which one of you guys was, but you said it back then.
Yeah, it was Ryan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and looking back, we probably should have tried to tamp down town side a little more. actively.
It's all little stuff, I mean, there's.
It
with
is,
these
and they all have
open
reasons why their
positions-
prices
And that's
went
why
up.
we're here, and that's why
Drivers,
Yeah,
we're here
but-
right
and they
now.
have reasons why all their prices went up and stuff, just like everyone does, but.
The big drivers are,
I mean, I think we have, it's a tough budget year, we all know. We have inflation and then an impending recession, could be stagflation, could be tougher next year. And it's, we might have to do even tighter next year. That's why my argument, and I agree with Glenn, is we've got to be tight on this because next year, if it gets ahead of us, it could be worse.
And it's sad that it's not even amount of, okay, so this part-time position we can't do. How about throwing, 10,000 in seasonal sporadic to help? It's not even,
That's not.
it's not even enough. Like, it's not like we're taking this chunk and we're gonna give a little bit to see if we can help, right? And get you some help in. It's not even gonna fix it, and that's,
What if you have those initials? What if you put 15,000 in for those initials for an outside service to hold them over until we can do a consolidation, or we have the job description, or we have what everyone's looking for?
what was that?
if we put like
Oh.
15 in sporadic.
Or
That's only
put
like
it in
20,
outside
so-
vendor.
It doesn't change it.
Brianna, you were using some like MFP or some
Oh,
initials for.
a
service
multi-service
provider.
provider, yeah.
I mean, I think the hard part here is it's not that there's not a need. I recognize it. I recognize there's a job description. I did recognize
100%.
that. I just think it's not. I mean, with this budget, it's not. The town can't afford it. I mean, based on the growth of expenditure.
That graph is pretty tough. So, Marcia, if you took out, like, if you make all those adjustments, like, Mary asked that wonderful question, where do we get to be without any red flag exposure? Where are we?
Great question.
So give us that scenario. Where are we with no red flag exposure?
And what is,
Or the least amount of red flag exposure. Let's look at that, and then I think that's that tell right there. It's like, oh,
Yeah, all right, it's gonna take me a minute, I'm on the
That's
other
fine,
screen here.
take your time.
Clearly, it's gonna be more than 72,420, because we'd already gotten up to that and then barely moved. Well, Marcia's thinking, I'll think too.
We've taken something out that I didn't put on my level list here.
we lowered center school.
Yep, we lowered that to 67.
I'm sure my son gets picked up from his friend's house.
I know. I think the hardest part in all of this is everybody has excellent points. Everyone does. You do. Mary does. Ryan does. I do. Glenn do. Everyone has excellent points. You know, the positions. Everything is an excellent, excellent point. It's just, there's exposure on every angle. There's exposure on a tax rate. There's exposure on on the 10-year plan. There's exposure, on every single way we look at it.
And none of us want to be here.
Nope.
I mean, not that we don't want to get a.
Yeah.
No, we all want.
We just don't want to be having these discussions.
I don't
right?
want
This
to.
is not-
No, this is. I don't want to have these
Too bad Iroquois
discussions.
wasn't here and we'd be all
I
set.
know.
Right,
That's
I
really,
know.
that's really where you want to be.
Where are
I
you?
mean,
Yeah. I don't. It's just a bad place to be. It's just a bummer place to be.
There you go, great question is to figure out.
Such a great question,
Just-
Mary. Such a good question. Just, okay,
It's just
where,
a hard one, like, so.
what needs to change to make it right? And then we go back to like the Eileen and I school thought, okay, so maybe it was better to be here, and then no one put that, or try that. You know, I'm going backwards, you're going
Or
forward.
we can change the mill and then cut some, and then we'll see where it goes.
I think the key, what Marcia was saying is, every 150,000 we add, we carry every year. You know, every time we stack another brick, that brick is the next, it's another higher level, right?
Right.
I mean, it's the kid, so there's not really a true number. It's a matter of what can we reduce now from the brick pile that isn't gonna stack up higher down the road.
Right.
So.
When so many
I
other
think
things
that
are already gonna stack up down the road.
We have a lot to face.
We do.
Again, we have an awful lot. We have a police station we gotta figure out. Through accreditation, these are things, again, that we gotta figure out, that we don't have a way around it, and it's gonna cost a lot of money. So, again, we have red flags coming up now, and it comes down to, and I'll say it again and again, it's just my experiences, and I think Ryan as well, if you don't hold the operating line, you're gonna lose control of everything, because you can't control the new police station. It's gonna come. We got to manage it, but for accreditation, it comes down to how do we be responsible not only within this year, but to keep ourselves responsible for the next few years, for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. And that's a decision that y'all have to make tonight. We could go back to last night's, where you ended last night. But again, last night's numbers, when the first selectwoman asked the director of finance to run the numbers, they came back with red flags, right? So, or we can, maybe red is a bad term, maybe they're yellow flags, you know, instead of trying to scare people, maybe they're yellow flags. But do we ignore those caution flags, or do we address them? And that's what y'all have to figure out tonight. I mean, as a group, we have to take everybody's opinion into account, but that's where we're at. Marcia's doing numbers, but I mean, it's a matter of what can we control now that doesn't stack down the road. So I think we've beaten this down quite a bit now. So it comes down to, I think, two choices. One, you go back to last night, where we were at, where you guys deliberated on it, and you say, that's what we're gonna go with and put it to the town's voters. Or we're gonna say, we looked at it last night, we ran it through the model, which isn't quite all, you know, it's not all together yet. It's got a little bit of hiccups in it, but it's the best we have. And we're going to address these yellow flags. And this is the new number we're going to come up with. I think that's where we're at right now. And we'll go around the table, and Ryan, you just were always first, and then Brianna. I'm just trying to picture y'all in my head here where you're sitting. So, Ryan.
You must have a camera in here, because that's exactly how we're
He
sitting.
knows us.
Yeah, we're all sitting here with our heads literally like, and I'm just sitting here going, had that question not be asked at the end of the night, can you go ahead and run that? We would have already been home. Because I wouldn't have even thought to have run it. I would have just been like, let's do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Glenn, thank you. I think, you know, I think we're, as a town, we've gotten, you know, since my time on the board, we've done a really good job of thinking down the road. We have the capital committee. We have all these other things that are in place to plan down the road. We are the operating committee, if you think about it, right? So we are trying to figure out here what's best. I just see 6.11% change on the town operations side. I see 3.79% on the Board of Ed side. I think we have to, my opinion is, we should manage that operating line for the town operations whatever best we can without making significant changes in the town. And I think we should put that to vote. And I think that would be something that voters can get behind. I just worry whether maybe it does pass this year. I worry about next year, and then all of a sudden we're carrying all these these expensive operating lines or these recurring costs, and then where do we cut? Well, we all know over 70% of the operations or the town operations is salary. So then we end up having to cut a person. I would not want to be in that situation to have to do that. I think it's a lot easier to cut, as much as I understand these are needs, I think it's a lot easier to cut a need than someone's job, and that's where I'm at. I'm just trying to manage that operating line in the future. So Glenn, I think my opinion would be to actually make those moves and then hopefully move forward tonight. But I'm done. Thank you.
All right, Brianna?
Yeah, I guess from the time I've been on this board, we always refer back to that 10-year plan, and I wasn't even thinking about it last night. I think I was just so happy that we got it under 4 and we checked off all those boxes, and then that came up today. And I feel like it while I know we're still working on it, we've always used that. We've always said, okay, this is our thing, this is our driver. You guys like literally jammed it down my throat when I first got here. So I feel like if there is something that is off, and I defer to Marcia and she says it's off, I think it'd be a hell of a lot harder to pull it back if we go forward with it off. And that's kind of where I'm at. It would just be, it's harder to go backwards when you're already so far forwards than not take a step forward and just stay where you are.
Eileen?
Yeah.
Speak your mind, Eileen. Just open book.
I
Don't
don't know.
tell us what you.
We're all like that right now.
I completely see, we need to make sure that we're in a good situation going forward. My thoughts of, having that next year, the line just has to be held steady instead of a 6% increase, but there's no guarantee that the person making the decision, the folks making the decision on the town side budget are going to be in that spot. I mean, it's all up for change.
Mary?
Oh, I didn't know, were you still thinking?
I don't think I have any more.
I have nothing more in me. Eileen and I are pretty flat, flat out.
Yeah, I mean, I totally.
How about?
Go ahead,
How
what?
about? Are you still there, Marcia? I know you are, but can you hear me?
I can hear you.
How about we go with what we decided tonight, but also we should have some money left over for the end of the year. We can review once we have a better idea, maybe to get the ball rolling on consolidation IT. We would have money, you think, right, to cover a person at that point, correct?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you. I mean, we had talked about this a week ago or whenever we were talking about budgets. We could maybe find a way at that point, yes or no, if we had a
Yes.
plan and we had kind of consolidations.
Yes.
That's not a very healthy yes. You could-
Yeah, that we could find money, we could find contingency next year that we don't know, everyone has to come in under budget on the town side on every line, and that can add up to a good amount of money. So
Right.
if we, to Eileen, to Mary's question,
Yep.
that if we cut another 250,000 out, the amount that we need on average goes in half. I'm sure we're not gonna cut 250 out, so, we're gonna have to bank on something else changing, either the percent of the mill rate going up, or that we only increase this 300,000 a year, because there's no way we're gonna be able to cut another 250 out.
If we did,
Yeah.
if we did cut 250, what would that bring us to in terms of percentage? I'm just curious, in terms of how, year over year.
Guys are killing me.
Sorry, Marcia.
But that's
It's
a big
okay.
problem. We can't even cut enough to make it right.
No, yeah, that's true.
So these are,
The few ideas we threw out tonight were maybe only a third of that.
Right. I'm just curious what that brings the number to.
4.9
4.9. So it's
for
about
operating.
250 for every percent. So. Okay.
No, we're at 6.11, so it's 1.25%. So,
Now that 250, does that include, that's a dish on top of what we've already
Yes.
covered?
Oh,
Okay.
she's
Yes.
additional. Oh, good.
All right, well, I think I'm with.
You see how it's stacked?
Yep,
Ryan?
yep, nope, yep, I get it. I get it. It's a point well proven. I just don't see it.
Can we reduce the capital line a little, well, we probably can reduce that capital line to 300. We're funding fully our reserves this year. We,
And the reserves going forward
The
with
reserves going forward
with the
should help.
pumper truck,
Yeah.
with the fire department.
right, with Andy being so grateful with redoing that, I wonder if we can actually reduce that to 300. Glenn, what do you think about that? From 5 to 3.
You gotta understand, I'm walking on one leg here tonight. So you
Sorry.
Sorry, Glenn.
I just think we're doing a prudent job of funding reserves here, and I think maybe the 500 is still a little aggressive.
Maybe it's
That's what
aggressive.
Tim's thinking
Yeah.
too, we
Yeah.
thought 500
Yeah,
was too
maybe
high.
okay. So that, there we go.
And maybe we find another 50, and there's our 250. Is that how it works? I don't know. It's-
The napkin's moving too fast for me tonight.
Sorry,
me
Glenn.
too.
Sorry, guys.
You know, I think that number, like I say, that number, it fits the model and I get it, but the number comes down to we need to decide whether we're gonna go with tonight's changes or keep it at last night's number. I mean, that's, we could spend 5 more hours on this,
Yeah.
and I
Yep,
think
you're
that's the
right, you're right.
reality. I mean, we know we're chasing a number, like Marcia said, 250 is a number. We tried to come up with as best that we could tonight without
Did,
really crucifying everything and cutting down to the bone. All we did was remove, new positions, not old positions that are currently in place.
and you still
I
have,
think it's,
the part-time IT in there.
Could you put 15,000 for those initial things and
She has,
as they're coming up with the
Yeah, but she's gonna take the,
she has a part-time IT person.
right, so you're gonna change that.
go ahead.
Or we're doing the math with that in, is what I guess I'm asking.
Yeah, and what I'm asking is, while they, get someone temporary, while they
Right.
decide what to do, by putting 15,000 in purchase professional services, and then, take the part-timer out, and mid-year, make the change.
So silly question here. If we do the 15 in purchase professional services and it doesn't go that way for a purchased professional service and it comes into like a seasonal sporadic, is that just an easy like inter-department or like a part-time,
Yes.
is it just an easy change, right?
Yes,
It's
it
not
is.
okay.
That one would just be the Board of Selectmen that would have to change it.
So that would, okay, sorry,
Okay.
keep going.
Let's take your guide, Marcia, throw it in there, and let's close this out. Because if we don't close it out, you're gonna lose me.
No, we're
What
gonna
I can
lose
tell you.
everyone at this point. We're just gonna start making them. All right.
And then, I don't know, who has the motion to read? Can
I
Marcia,
do.
you-
Marcia has it.
Marcia has it.
Let me just go down here, that, so now operating is, further down. 6%. We haven't changed revenue, so we're at 286, and so I would say we want to take some of this out so that we're not using it this year and bringing it back to 298 is what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Oh, that's too big. Sure, there's a mathematical way to do this, but that's
Close,
not
you're
good.
almost there. 97. 97, try 97.
I went the wrong way there.
Oh, not enough.
No, it's gonna be 94.5.
You got a napkin in front of you?
You got it.
And you know we got it too.
Why did that go down? Oh, because I went the wrong way.
It's too far now.
No, more.
No.
85? I think it's because it's rounding, right?
It's
It
that
makes a big-
rounding.
And then it makes a big move when it hits, you
It's not moving, Marcia.
know.
We talked about that last night, Glenn. We know why that is.
Oh yeah, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Glenn, you were in here for that.
There we go.
There it is.
65.
There it is.
What is it?
65.
So,
Okay.
the motion, this was the motion with last night's figures. Let me update it, just give me 1 minute to update it with tonight's figures.
Eileen, could you read it, because it'll be
Yeah.
clearer, I think?
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you good with that?
I think we've done the best we possibly could.
Yeah,
With what
I
we've
think
got.
putting in some sporadic, the sporadic wages
Gives it
is a
little
bridge.
bit- It's a bridge. It's a bridge. It's a safety. It's a bridge. And then did we do the 500 to 300? Did she do that in the capital?
I don't.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
What did we do the library at?
50.
Okay.
And we brought down center school,
Yep.
and we did get rid of the land use.
Yeah, but we gave them.
But we gave them,
sporadics.
yep, the sporadic back, so we've got some sporadic in IT, and we left the sanitarian, and there was nowhere else.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fact that you can't potentially cut enough to get it right is a huge
Mhm.
thing.
This is helpful for people to
Hopefully.
get through this tough year, and then
Yeah.
hopefully maybe next year.
This was not easy, and I just know nobody's watching because it's St. Patrick's Day and they're probably doing other
I went
things,
home
but
last night and I said, this seemed like it was too easy, we must, I literally said,
Yeah.
like, it couldn't have been this easy, this was supposed to be such a
Plus
tough
it was
year.
11 o'clock at night.
It was 11 o'clock at night.
After the
pretty long
second,
in the
and
tooth.
a week of daylight savings, that daylight savings kicked my butt.
Oh.
and I really think that I'm sure some of it will be overlooked, but I really hope that people understand how hard. This was the hardest one I've ever been on, I think.
Yeah.
The COVID one was like mentally hard because we had to make the vote, and I felt that was a hard thing. And I remember I kept saying,
Yeah.
"Can we just wait? Can we just wait? Can
Yeah.
we just wait? Can we just wait?" But this was definitely like the heartstrings one. This one like was hard from the inside out. This is you want to fight for everything.
I do know as a group now, we have to sell this budget hard, because there's nowhere to go.
Everybody that's been at this table has to sell this budget.
Everybody who's sitting at this table has to know. There's
That has been at the
someone-
table, like
Yeah.
even those
Yeah.
who are not here.
Those are not at the, yeah, this has been, that's a good point, Eileen. This is, if this is, because let me tell you something,
Sell, it gets worse.
if this
doesn't
doesn't pass, it gets a lot worse on many levels. So we need to make this work.
doesn't pass, it won't be good, exactly right.
That's my point,
We
yeah.
gotta stand behind that, as a group, we stand behind it, and we gotta sell it with this, because if we know that we're down to the nitty gritty now. Now, once she starts, getting lower than that. So, I think that we gotta to sell this right now, hardcore.
Hardcore.
So, go,
So there's the motion, and I will forward it to Diane, and I'll forward it to all of you, I guess.
Okay,
And then you're gonna read it.
I'm gonna read it. I can read that, the fonts.
Can you read that?
I know,
Yes. Okay.
Or
Okay, so I am going to make a motion to approve and recommend to a town meeting and referendum the following operating budget for the fiscal year 2023-24. In summary, we have town operations at $21,938,307. School operations at $50,510,562. A debt service of $7.7 million, $7,703,957,000. Capital projects of $28,287,218, with a total of $82,444,044, as outlined and described in the operating budget being submitted to the town clerk. This budget represents an increase of 3.98% over the mill rate, over the prior fiscal year, and anticipates a mill rate of 26.91 for fiscal year 2023-24.
Yes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Seconded by Ryan. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Ah,
Okay, one absent, 5-0.
all
Okay.
right. Thank you all for everything that you did.
Wait, we
You're
go,
alone.
we're not done.
It's part two.
Part two.
Oh, sorry, part two. Yep, my bad.
Okay. Okay, I will make a motion to approve and recommend to a town meeting and referendum an amount not to exceed $8,352,745 for the capital budgets for the fiscal year 2023-24, as outlined and described in the capital budget being submitted to the town clerk. And to approve financing an amount not to exceed these amounts with the issuance of bonds and/or temporary notes in accordance with the standard bonded and borrowing resolution for said appropriations not to exceed $1 million. The balance will come from the following sources: grant funding in the order of $4,256,000, year-end 2023 one-time revenues of $2,514,828, $827. Year-end 2023 one-time revenues from FEMA amounting in $350,000. Year-end 2023 transfer from savings in the salt line, $44,000. And a fund balance in capital non-recurring of $187,918 for a total of $7,352,745.
I will second that.
Brianna is seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Glenn?
Yeah, I,
Okay. So motion
5-0.
passes 5-0 with one absent.
All right, so I'm gonna put this together over the weekend. We have to have it printed on Monday. I'll get it to Andrea to post and print. And I just wanna double check it, that, and I'll send you the motion and the budget when I'm done double checking it.
Thank you.
Does somebody
Thank
have
you.
to go to town hall on Monday and sign anything, or is
Yeah,
that?
Glenn,
So Glenn will sign
if
it.
you're not feeling up to it, let me know and I will go.
Looking at last year, that I was about to make the paper for Glenn's signature with a script font,
Yep.
but we don't do that until the final budget
Oh.
from what I can see in my paperwork.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So that's once it goes through public
Okay.
comment.
all right. Thank you all for all your hard work, and thank you all for coming in tonight. And I know it was hard for everyone, and I know put everyone in a position that was uncomfortable, and sometimes that's where it is. You know, we had to make some hard decisions, and I think made them in the best interest of the town and their belief. And I think that we got to get behind this budget, and I appreciate everything you guys did. And sorry I wasn't there to help out. So
That's okay.
enjoy the rest of your stay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Hope you feel better.
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Feel
to
better.
adjourn.
Second?
There you go.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
By the way, I ran with the.
We're still in